Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, so we're going to repeat this little thing. He says تعريف الواجب ثم شرع في تعريف الأحكام التي ذكرها بذكر لازم بذكر لازم كل واحد منهم فقال الواجب ما يثاب على فعله ويعاقب على نفسه تركه. Right? So that's not his definition. أي فالواجب من حيث وصفه بالوجوب هو ما يثاب على فعله ويعاقب على تركه. فالثواب على الفعل والعقاب على الترك أمر لازم. Right? That's something that is, you're describing something based on the lawazim. It's like saying, for example, water is defined as something that all life needs. Right? That's not the haqiqah of it, right? It's not the reality of it. من حيث وصفه بالوجوب وليس هو حقيقة الواجب فإن الصلاة مثلا أمر معقول متصور في نفسه وهو غير حصول ثواب فعله والعقاب تركه. So the obligatory act itself, he's saying, right? But also obligation itself, that's not the definition of obligation. So there's a difference between طلب الله طلب الله من عبده الفعل طلبا جازما, right? Allah telling us to do something firmly. There's a difference between that and whether there's a reward or not. And we spoke about this last week. Okay, so now we wanted to go into a tangent. And so we have Sheikh Muhammad Amin here. Sheikh Muhammad, can you tell us what does wajib mean in the Hanafi school, in the Hanbali school? You say this is the furud of the prayer versus the wajibat of the prayer.
But if you forget it or don't know it, the ibadah is valid. But if you abandon it intentionally, ibadah is invalid.
Okay, so so we can ask the question then. When let's take the example that I knew that Allah had told me to do the Fatiha, and I knew that Allah had told me to say Subhana Rabbil A'la, for example, in sujood. So I knew about both of them. So ilman, mukhtaran, amdan, right? I knew, I chose, and I intentionally missed the Fatiha, and I knew, and I chose, and I intentionally missed the tasbih in sujood, right? One of them is called missing a wajib. The other one is called missing a fard. They are both haram, right? And the prayer is both invalid in both cases. Is that correct, Muhammad Amin?
Yes.
Right. Now let's flip it. Let's say jahlan or sahwan, right? I didn't do the Fatiha. Or jahlan or sahwan, I didn't do the tasbih, right? So I missed the Fatiha sahwan, or I missed the Fatiha jahlan. The prayer doesn't count, right?
Yes.
Whereas, but now, so we ask you, you say, is it wajib? Is it wajib to do the Fatiha if you forgot? The answer is no. Okay, why? Because we say it's not wajib or fard in reality, because nothing's wajib for or nothing is wajib or fard for the nasi or the jahil. Al-jahil غير مكلف. الناسي غير مكلف. So if you think about it, when a Hanafi or a Hanbali or a Shafi'i makes a distinction between a wajib and a fard, they are making it different in terms of its repercussions, not in terms of what it is. Right? So here, Sheikh Muhammad Amin said, oh, if you forgot about it, it'll be okay. If you didn't know about it, okay. You're not even more responsible if you forget anyway. So in terms of usul, is it wajib for me to do the Fatiha if I didn't know that it was there? or fard for me to do the Fatiha if I didn't know that. So internally in Hanbali fiqh or Shafi'i fiqh or Hanafi fiqh, we would say taraka wajiban, taraka fardan, right? That's we're talking about in terms of the repercussions. What could you do sujood sahu? Could you not do sujood sahu? Is it excused? Is it not excused? That's what we're talking about. But in terms of what it is, there's actually no difference between the wajib and the fard in, for example, there's no difference between the obligation, the moral obligation to do the Fatiha in the prayer versus to do the tasbih, right? There's no difference. So that's why in usul they're going to say it's called a wajib, right? That's just wajib. There's not an actual difference, right? So let's say so would I be am I sinful? So he says ma yuthabu ala fi'lihi wa yu'aqabu ala tarkihi. So now I didn't know, so then I didn't do the Fatiha. هل يعاقب على تركه؟ لا, because I didn't know. Why? Because of the shart taklif, the conditions of being more responsible is that you know something. So if you don't know something, you're not responsible. If you forgot something, you're not responsible, right? So you see that difference? So internally, as a useful term, we're going to say wajib and fard in the Hanbali school in prayer or in wudu. But in reality, there's no difference. Similarly, we jump to go and see our Hanafi friends. Who knows the difference in the Hanafi school? What's the difference between the wajib and the fard? Go ahead, Mizan.
One, it has to be established from Qati Usul and Qati Tilala, and the other one is going to be one of the two.
Okay. So from the point of view of i'tiqad, okay, I'm going to give it, so the point of view of i'tiqad, I didn't believe that sujood was obligatory in prayer. Am I a Muslim?
As in, just you don't believe it, but did you know about it?
I know about it and I reject it.
Then no, because it's from the Qatiyat, right?
Okay. I didn't believe that reciting the Fatiha was obligatory in prayer,
No, it's not going to lead to kufr.
right? So why? So what you're talking about now is qat'i dhanni in terms of i'tiqadat, right?
Yeah.
Qat'i dhanni, right? And now you're going to say basically, I don't believe the Fatiha is obligatory. Khalas, you're a fasiq perhaps, but you're not a
Yeah.
kafir, right? Now in terms of repercussions, I didn't do the Fatiha in my prayer. What do I have to do now?
It'll be wajib to do such as
Okay. I didn't do any Quran at all.
Then you've left the foot up, like so the salah doesn't count at
Right?
all.
So you can see I'm asking this Hanafi faqih, and he's explaining the repercussions. He's saying, where does it come from, the repercussions? He's not talking about the wujub itself, right? So in terms of the wujub itself, I am confident that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. No, I know the Prophet Allah sent Prophet Muhammad to me, and I'm confident that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam obliged me to do the Fatiha. It's wajib, right? It's wajib. I have to do that. And so whether you say reciting the Quran is wajib or reciting the Fatiha is wajib, it's the same. Nina, or doing the sujood itself versus pausing in the sujood, it's all the same, right? So yes, in terms of aqidah, okay, that's a separate discussion. Yes, in terms of repercussions, it's a discussion, but in terms of the wujub itself, in terms of the moral obligation, it's the same. It is, right? It's talab jazim, right? Allah's asking you to do it, and He's not giving you an option not to do it, right? So there's repercussions in terms of, okay, so he, for example, didn't do sujood sahu, and now the prayer time's over, right? So he said, well, did he recite anything? Did he do at least 3 ayahs, or at least, ma yutlaqa alayhi ism al-jins, right? Something that's considered like he recited Quran, right? Then you can say, khalas, he prayed, right? So, but that's not in terms of the wujub, okay? So in terms of the wujub, there's no difference. So in terms of what's going on, we have the same thing in Hajj and Umrah. We have a difference in the Shafi school, difference in Fard and Wajib. We have a distinction, right? But these are in terms of its repercussions, in terms of different things, not in terms of what it is in reality. Okay? Not in terms of what it is in reality. Even you say, for example, what's the difference between Sunnah and Sunnah Mu'akkada? So, for example, I don't do my Sunnah Mu'akkada, I don't do Taraweeh. What's the hukum? For the Hanbalis, Sheikh Muhammad Amin. I don't pray Taraweeh, خلاص, at all.
It's fine.
It's fine. I'm not that right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has asked me to pray Taraweeh, but it's not talab jazim, right? I have an option not to do it. Okay, Mizan.
Um, uh, you've asked different people, they'll say different things. So there's a famous opinion that if you do istimrar of leaving a sunnah muakkada, then it's sinful.
Okay, so now you see this distinction. So now I'm going to come on a side and say today I'm not going to do istimrar. Like let's take that position, okay? But take that position. You just do if you do istimrar. So I say it's either so istimrar is sinful, right? So I didn't do it today without an excuse, and I'm not going to do it tomorrow without an excuse. And maybe they're going to say some of the ashab al-hawashi on the third day it becomes a sin. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to say there's two different actions then. One is the wujub of doing it in general, such that you don't do istimrar tark. The other one is doing it one-off, right? So then you could flip it and say it's makruh tahriman to miss it regularly, but not makruh tahriman to miss it once. You know what I'm saying? So we will label it. They don't speak like that, right? They wouldn't use those terms. You're going to have this nice, beautiful, gray debate where is it sinful to miss it once or is it sinful to miss it in general, right? But the point is, at the end of the day, it's going to fit either into wajib or sunnah. There isn't another category called sunnah mu'akkada. Now, it is useful. The Hanafis having sunnah mu'akkada, right? Like we Shafis, for example, we have this inconvenient general thing which is recommended. So recommended could be anywhere from like a really flimsy analogy that would make something minorly better to something that is nigh wajib, right? So if you ask me, for example, growing a beard, we say sunnah. If we say, for example, cutting the nail on your ring finger after doing your index finger is recommended. So the proofs are totally different. The issue of the beard is like almost obligatory. Like majority of the ulama say it's obligatory, right? And there's a clear command to do it. There's a command to do it. Most scholars consider it for wujub. We even have positions in our school that's for wujub. That's called recommended. And then we have something else, which is, it would be recommended, I don't know, to clean up some tea with your left hand because, it's kind of like somewhat analogous to cleaning yourself with going to the bathroom. So it's kind of more respect. So there's things that are like minor adab versus nigh wajib. In the Shafi school, we all call it mustahab, right? We call it mustahab because at the end of the day, you don't have to do it. You are being asked to do it, but you don't have to do it, right? So it's nice. It is convenient and nice to have words like sunnah, sunnah mu'akkada, sunnah mu'akkad, aqrab ila wajib, right? Nafal, right? Raghiba. It's nice to have these different terms, right? It is useful, but at the end of the day, it's just you can fit it into one thing. Does that make sense? And the differences are secondary, non-essential, right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so it is wajib, right? So now you come along and say, no, this wajib fard, that's a non-essential difference. So it's not a difference, right? So he says, فَإِنْ قِيلْ قَوْلُهُ يُعَاقَبُ عَلَى تَرْكِهِ. If you don't do it, there is a punishment. يَقْتَضِي لُزُومُ الْعِقَابِ. Right? That means every single person who misses it will be punished. لكل من ترك واجبا وليس ذلك بلازم فالجواب أن يكفي في الصدق العقاب على الترك وجوده لواحد من الأوصاف مع العفو عن غيره. Right? So if you said witr was obligatory and one person missed it with no excuse and did not make tawbah, if one person was punished and everybody else was forgiven, that would be enough. Right? So what it means is yu'aqab, i.e. yuhaddad بالعقاب. He is threatened with punishment. That's what it means. أو يقال مراد يعاقب أي ترتب العقاب على تركه كما عبر بذلك غير واحد وذلك لا ينافي العفو عنه. وأورد على التعريف المذكور أنه غير مانع لدخول كثير من السنن فيه فإن الأذان سنة وإذا تركها أهل بلد قوتلوا وكفى بذلك عقابا. وكذلك صلاة العيدين عند من يقول بذلك، ومن ترك الوتر ردت شهادته ونحو ذلك. Right? So he notice here, if you miss, he's talking about in the Maliki school, presumably, you miss witr, you're considered mutahawin bid-din, like you don't really care. Right? May Allah guide all of us. SubhanAllah, I once knew a Hanafi like that. He's like, hi, I'm Hanafi, but I don't pray witr. I was like, Habibi, you know? There's something called tahawun, right? There's an attitude, right, that the Salaf expected people to have. It's like, you know, there's debate in fiqh or whatever, but there's mutahawin. One of my teachers as well, Hanafi, I said, yeah, I'm really good at chess. Like, Habibi, you're really good at chess, you know? I mean, isn't the school, the Hanafi school is makruh tahriman, right? So the debate in chess is either makruh tahriman or it's makruh tanzihan. And the Shafis, we call it makruh, we say makruh tanzihan. We have a mas'ala, are you as a Shafi allowed to play chess with a Hanafi? Right? Because I'm doing something makruh tanzihan, but I'm doing i'ana ala haram because you're doing something that is makruh tahriman, right? So anyway, Allah protect us all and give us, adab, right? Adab is everything, subhanAllah, right? Adab al-ta'a wa adab al-asyan, right? The right way to do what is right and the right way to do what is wrong. How do you worship Allah? How do you sin in the right way? May Allah forgive us, right? Like how do you respond? How do you look at yourself when you've done these things? So may Allah forgive us. Anyway, so man taraka al-witr ruddat shahadatuhu, right? Isn't that an iqab? Right? So it says أجيب أن مراد إقاب الآخرة, number one, right? وبأن العقوبة مذكورة ليست على نفس الترك but على لازمه وهو الانحلال من الدين وهو haram. So there's things, for example, in the Shafi school, you could have the ruler could punish you for things that are not even haram, right? So, you're walking down the street and people are asking you questions of halal, haram, you didn't have a hat on. And he was like, you know, you do, you're kind of changing, things. Or in Muhammad Amin, he stands outside in the university with with the sandwich board. You know what a sandwich board is, Muhammad? There's like the thing goes over your shoulders. It's like a big plaque on your front saying "Marry me," right? It's like, is that haram? Like, is it haram to there's a bunch of talibat, a bunch of girls there, and it's like, marry me. It's not haram, right? I mean, but that's a dumb thing to do. It's not appropriate, right? It's not appropriate, you know. Or somebody has a t-shirt, he always goes and stand outside the sisters and exit of the masjid. I'm still 75% unmarried, I'm still 75% single, meaning like I'm looking for my second wife. But like, it's just inappropriate, it's an inappropriate behavior. So there's lots of things that could be inappropriate behavior even though it's not haram in itself, right? وهو حرام ورد الشهادة ليس عقابا إنما هو عدم أهلية لتري رتبة شرعية شرطها كمالات تجتمع في أفعال وترك ودخل فيها الواجب وغيره. ألا ترى أن العبد إذا ردت شهادته لم يكن ذلك عقوبة له وإنما ذلك لنقصانه عن درجة العدالة. Two different things, right? So this is not necessarily true, right? على أن الصحيح أن الأذان في مصر فرض كفاية. So it's sunnah ayn, right? Fard kifaya. So it's two different actions, right? Like what is it? Tarawih in the Hanafi school, not Tarawih, i'tikaf, right? In the Hanafi school, like it's sunnah ayn, fard kifaya, something like that, right? Like it's sunnah for you to do it, but somebody has to do it, right? Hanafis, is that correct?
I'm not sure if it's Sunnah al-Kifaya or something else.
Okay, but anyway, so I thought it was something like that. But the point is, there's two different hukms on it, right? Two different hukms for two different points of view. ونص أصحابنا على أنه لا يقاتل من ترك العيدين وسؤالان واردان على حد المحظور وجواب كسؤال. Okay, تعريف مندوب. So the same discussion. You're going to say, no, there's a difference in sunnah mu'akkada. You miss a sunnah mu'akkada in the prayer, right? And the Maliki school, right? You miss certain. Do you have many Malikis here? Kind of ironic if there's no Malikis here, right? Maliki, right? So in the Maliki school, right, you miss certain sunan in the prayer. You could call for like three sunans or that three main sunan. You could call for sujood sahw in the Shafi school, right? We miss certain sunan. It calls for sujood sahw. But in the Maliki school, sujood sahwi is gonna be necessary. You don't do it now, the prayer is invalid. Right? You didn't, for example, recite aloud, you didn't do something else, you didn't do something else. It'll call for sujood sahw. You don't do sujood sahw, now the prayer is not going to count. Right? So you say there's a difference between sunnah and wajib. You say, yeah, that's in terms of its repercussions, in terms of what it is, right? In terms of what it is mandub, right? Has Allah firmly asked you to do it? Yes, wajib. Has He not firmly asked you to do it, but He has asked you to do it? Mandub. Sunnah. Muraghab fihi. Right? Mustahab. Whatever you want to call it. والمندوب هو المأخوذ من الندب. Right? وهو الطلب. Right? وشرعا من حيث وصفه بالندب ما يثاب على فعله ولا يعاقب على تركه. Right? So again, that's not its definition itself, right? جزاكم خير. And is there a sin if it doesn't happen?
And then this will go back to
The
what do
whole
you
discussion.
count
Yeah.
as the, yeah.
Right. Now, interestingly, in terms of the ethics, right? So here we're trying to not be ethical. We're trying to be very technical, right? But in terms of the ethics of the Sahaba and the ethics of the Salaf, all of them had this vagueness about them. All of them. So we see it in the Hanafi school, like we're calling it makruh and not haram. Why? Because the Salaf didn't like to say things like haram. They didn't like to say that. Because, right, وَلَا تَقُولُوا بِأَلْسِنَتِكُمْ هَذَا حَلَالٌ وَهَذَا حَرَامٌ تَفْتَرُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبِ. Right? Don't do that. Right? So that's the adab of the Salaf. Right? سَأَلْنَاهُ فَكَرِهَهُ. Right? We asked so and so, فَكَرِهَهُ. We didn't like it. Right? So we find this among the Salaf, right? That vagueness of haram versus makruh versus makruh tahrimi, makruh tanzihi, right? That vagueness is part of the spirit of the Salaf, right? The vagueness between sunnah and wajib. But we're not dealing with that vagueness now. We are now cutting through that vagueness and saying, actually, which category do you put it in, right? You know, Imam Ibn Umar, I believe, he was asked, you know, is witr obligatory or not? So he said the Prophet ﷺ used to pray witr and the Sahaba used to pray witr. So then he's asked again, is it wajib or is it sunnah? He said the Prophet ﷺ used to pray witr and the Sahaba used to pray witr. Khalas. You know, they didn't think in that terms. But you have to at some point, right? You can't just live in that beautiful, you know, what is it, Frank Sinatra? Like, and then you had to go and ruin it all by saying something crazy like I love you, right? So the Sahaba, they lived in this beautiful Imani world. But at some point, you have to burst some bubbles by saying, is it here or here? Because literally, right? Like, you have to know. Like, if it's wajib, then this. There are certain scenarios, like if witr is a wajib, then you're going to have to do X. And if witr is not wajib, then you have to do Y. So you will actually have to know, not because you can't be bothered, but you do actually have to know, is it A or B? Right? Like so you do actually have to know, and you can't just leave it like that, right? You can't leave in that beautiful ethical world, right? Of just doing what the Prophet did. You actually have to cut off this from that at certain points. Wallahu a'lam. Okay, al-mubah min haythu wasfu bil-ibah ma la yuthabu ala fi'lihi, right? يريد ولا على تركه ولا يعاقب على تركه ويريد ولا على فعله أي لا يتعلق بكل من فعله وتركه ثواب ولا عقاب ولا بد من زيادة ما ذكرنا لئلا يدخل فيه المكروه والحرام, right? So ما لا يثاب على فعله ولا على تركه ولا يعاقب على تركه ولا فعله. So it's neither on both sides, right? So it's neither nor, right? And again here, look at the spirit of the, again, like pro Hanafi today, right? You know, wasting time in the Hanafi school, right? Lahu, for no qasd, you know, at all. I'm not relaxing, I'm not exercising, just doing wasting time, right? So wasting time is fundamentally un-Islamic. So that means mubah, like in the pure original life ethics of the Salaf, they didn't have mubah. You're just sitting there doing nothing, you know? Like you just right. How is that? How are you sane? How are you on the sunnah? How are you following the way of the Prophet and Sahaba if you're just sitting there wasting time, right? So it's kind of again, it's not a real thing of their world, right? But it is a necessary thing to say this is neither nor in principle, right? And then practically speaking, it's pretty rare to find somebody that's neither nor, right? So for example, is it permissible? I have qada prayers to do. I miss qada prayers, and I'm just going to sit here and on my phone and look at how you spell cabbage in German, you know? So is it halal to look up cabbage how they say cabbage in German? It's halal, right? It's mubah. Right. I have no noble intention. I'm not trying to learn German and give da'wah. I just wondering what they call a cabbage in German, right? But then so for those of us, those madhahib that say that يجب القضاء على الفور, you have to do qada immediately, is haram. من حيث, right? من حيث إنه يؤدي إلى ترك الواجب, right? So there's many mubahat that are haram accidentally because they lead to tark al-wajib or tark or or leaving something else, right? But that's something else. So on a practical level and a theoretical level, it's important, but otherwise it doesn't really exist that much, right? تعريف المحظور meaning the haram والمحظور من حيث وصفه بالحذر أي ما يثاب على تركه امتثالا ويعاقب على فعله, right? So again, whether there's a punishment or something else, the point is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden the makruh and forbidden the haram. But one is nahyan jaziman, the other one is nahyan naha anhu nahyan jaziman wa naha anhu nahyan ghayr jazim. Right? That's the haqiqah of it. Khair. And also he adds this word imtithalan. What does that mean? ما يثاب على تركه امتثالا. So am I being rewarded right now for not stealing Nizan's phone?
You have to have the intention of doing it for the release of Allah. You
So
have to have intention.
either I can't get to it to begin with. I don't even know if he has a phone. Or تركته خوفا من الشرطة. Right? I was about to steal it and then the police came. So I didn't do it ta'abbudan. I didn't do it as ibadah. I didn't do it imtithalan. Right? So let's compare it to the story of that man who he's in love with his cousin, and then his cousin he was trying to basically get his way with his cousin. It didn't work, and then his cousin's broke, and she comes and says, "I need some help." He says, "Fine, but let me sleep with you." So he's like, "Okay, sure. If you give me the money, I'll do it." So then he's about to do that. Nothing stopping him apart from Allah. Right? So then he's like, "Khalas, you keep the money and that's it." Right? So taraka zina imtithalan, as opposed to, "Oh, hang on a minute. I am not I get the reward for not harming all the dinosaurs that lived 100 million years before me." Right? You didn't leave the harm of a dinosaur imtithalan, right? You did that ittiraran. You didn't have a choice, right? Or for some other reason. Okay. So again, what's the difference between haram and makruh tahriman? Nothing in reality. Vis-a-vis is dalil, yes, there's a difference. Vis-a-vis repercussions, yes, there's a difference. Vis-a-vis aqidah, yes, there's a difference. But in terms of itself, there's no difference. That's why haram, wajib, it's the same thing, right? La mushahata fi istilah. Call whatever you want. You want to call it what you want to call this different, something that's fine, right? Like who knows what a panther is? Who's heard of a panther? Yeah, go ahead, Muhammad.
Well, it's an animal.
It's an animal. What kind of animal?
A a feline.
Feline, okay. Is it a big cat or a small cat?
think it's big.
What color is it?
Can be multiple colors,
Like what?
like a black.
Could be black. Could it be striped?
I don't know.
Right. So use the word in French, right? Panthère, right? You say that? Use
Panthère.
panthère. Okay, panthère, right? But in reality, in English, panther is a cat. That's a genus of cat. So we use the word panther or black panther or pink panther, right? It's not an animal. That's a word that we use for jaguars, particularly a black jaguar could be a black. It's called a black panther. A leopard or a black leopard is called a black panther. Um, I think we also use it for a cougar or a mountain lion is also a panther. So it's not actually a thing. So you're talking about a leopard? Are you talking about which could be black, right? Or striped, I mean, or spotted. We're talking about a jaguar in South America, which could be black as well, or could be spotted. Or are you talking about a mountain lion slash cougar in South and North America? These are three different things. So we say la mushahata fi istilah. Call whatever you want, as long as you define it. Right? There's no problem. So you can say what you can call it. This is fard and this is wajib, but as long as you give a definition for it, right? But then once you give your definition for it from a certain point of view, there's no difference. There's no difference between A and B, right? There's no difference. So there could be a difference. So you want to call it something else for something that a fard aradi for or a khassa that has something unique to it, that has something that is non-essential. But in terms of what it is, as long as you define what it is, and I see that these two things are the same, there's no difference, right? So the haram min haythu kaunuhu manhiyun anhu nahyan jaziman la farq. There's no difference between the haram and the makruh tahriman. There's no difference, right? From the point of view of dalil, yes, there's a difference. From the point of view of, for example, kabira, non-kabira. Oh, this person, for example, they were listening to music. Is that a major sin or a minor sin? This person committed zina. Is that a major sin or minor sin? It could be repercussions in court. Could be repercussions in this. Could be repercussions in that. Right? All sorts of repercussions. Right? That's a vis-a-vis something that's not essential to it. Not, but we're talking about what it is essentially. So essentially, there's no difference. So the Shafis, for example, we talk about also khilaf al-awla. So khilaf al-awla is just not doing a sunnah, right? You say هذا خلاف الأولى, right? All it means is you didn't do the sunnah, that's all. It doesn't actually mean anything else. So every single time you don't do the best possible thing in your life, you're doing khilaf al-awla. As opposed to makruh is not the opposite of sunnah. It is an actual thing, right? So he says, وَالْمَكْرُوهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ وَصْفُهُ بِالْكَرَاهَةِ مَا يُثَابُ عَلَى تَرْكِهِ امْتِثَالًا وَلَا يُعَاقَبُ عَلَى فِعْلِهِ. If you did it, there was no threat of a punishment, right? So the key thing then, I'm going to skip some of these things. The key thing then is for the makruh, is the makruh, there's a key debate. Is the makruh a qism min aqsam al-mubah, or is it qism min aqsam al-manhiyun anhu? Right? So if just we mean there's a threat, but no. So number one, the threat of punishment is not a valid definition of these things. Number one. That is a lazim. That is not that. That's not what it is. So what is prayer? Prayer, the 5 daily prayer is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told you to do, and He has not given you an option not to do it. That's what we mean by wajib. And by the way, there's a punishment if you don't do it. That's not actually essential, number one. Number two, if you apply that definition, there's no difference between something that's makruh tahriman and something that is haram. Or fard and wajib. Because he's either told you you have to do it and you have no way out, or you cannot do it and there's no way out. So there will be different terms for it, makruh tahriman versus haram, or wajib versus fard, but that's not an essential difference. That's a labeling based on something that's non-essential difference. Like I'm going to say there's humans and then there's was. Was are humans that live in North or South America. Okay, fine. You want to call it that, that's fine. That's not actually, but the definition of humans then are these things. And then the other ones are those who live in North or South America. They're called was. You want to call it something else, that's fine. But essentially they're not different. Because one is a human being that doesn't live in North or South America, and the other one is a human being that lives in North or South America. Min haythu kawnuhu basharan, from the point of view of it being a human being, there's no difference. If you want to label it differently, that's fine. It's convenient, helps you, it's fine. Exactly, yeah. Okay, so now here's an important discussion, okay, particularly between the Shafis and between the Shafis and Malikis, right? So Shafis and Malikis on some levels were very, very different, other levels were not. So we can actually, the Shafis and Malikis, we can actually have the most fruitful discussions between us, right? Because a lot of our masail are kind of similar, and a lot of usul are similar. There's some things that are very different, like istihsan, obviously amal ahmadina. There's other things that are very different, but there's certain things that are like very, very similar. So I'm going to just clear this. Where's my whiteboard? Stop sharing. Whiteboard here. And not in terms of lawasm either. In terms of some lawasm, yeah, but not necessarily the same. Okay. So I'm going to make this diagram. How do I do this? Like this. Like this. Okay, so let's think about these things, okay? In terms of validity, and particularly in terms of acts of worship, okay? Think about worship specifically, okay? So you can only worship Allah in a way that you have been told to worship Him, right? This is the concept of bid'ah, right? Our bid'ah brothers, the Salafis, right? This is bid'ah, this bid'ah. The concept is right. If an act of worship is not ma'mur bihi, then it's not going to be valid, okay? If an act of worship is not ma'mur bihi, then it's not going to be valid, right? So that's why, right? Let's say, for example, in the Shafi school, you come and ask me, and you say sujood. Give me the hukm on sujood. Say, well, sujood is either wajib, it's here, for example, like in prayer, or it's mandub. Okay, when is it mandub? Say, well, like sujood is shukr, right? Sujood tilawa, right? That's going to be mandub, right? So sujood shukr or tilawa, that's going to be mandub, or it's going to be wajib. Any sujood outside of that is going to be not going to count. Okay, it's not going to count. It's not going to. No, it doesn't mean anything. Okay, it's not ma'mur bihi. Similarly, makruh and haram in the Shafi school, praying after asr. Okay, praying after asr. Right, we and we're going to come to the issue of sihha and fasad in a second with our but we say if you pray after asr, you are doing something that is arguably makruh. We call it al-awqat al-makruha, right? Or awqat al-karaha, right? Praying in the makruh times. The Malikis will agree with us that it's called makruh times. Can't pray in those times, makruh, right? We say, given that it is makruh, and given that makruh is a subset of manhi anhu, and is a qasim, right? This is a qism, a subcategory, and it's a qasim. It's the opposite of ma'mur bihi. So praying in the makruh time is, if we say it's makruh, which is a weak position in the school, is not going to be valid because not ma'mur bihi. So this is relevant because whenever an act of worship will be makruh, right, then it's going to be invalid. Because the point is it's not ma'mur bihi. Does that make sense? So we're going to have this. Go ahead, go Muhammad.
Makruh with respect to itself?
مكروه من حيث ذاته ومن حيث لا من حيث الخارج. What does that mean حيث الخارج? So for example, Hanbalis, right? So for a Hanbali, praying, I'm going to pray a sunnah prayer when I have a qada prayer to make up. Right? We're not just going to say that it's sinful. We're actually going to say it's invalid. Right? Because or الوضوء بالماء المغصوب, right? بالماء المغصوب, right? So we would say that's min hayth al-kharij, something that is, it's sinful, not because it's sinful to make wudu itself, but it's sinful because you are doing an act of worship while sinning or by sinning. You're doing this, the sin is happening through the worship, right? So we wouldn't see it like that. Like
So is that why they call it نهي يقتضي الفساد لمسألة rather than الحرمة?
Say it again, Muhammad.
Is that why they call the مسألة النهي يقتضي الفساد rather than حرمة تقتضي الفساد?
Yes.
Because it can encompass the makruh.
Yeah. Now, so here we're gonna have this discussion internally with Shafi'is. Similarly, if I'm gargling, right? I'm gargling in Ramadan with water. We say that's makruh. But because it's makruh, it's غير مأمور به. And because it's غير مأمور به, if I accidentally swallowed the water, it wouldn't count. It would break my fast. Even if it was accident, right? Because it's غير مأمور به, right? If I make ghusl that is sunnah or wajib, because it's ma'mur bihi, and water accidentally went down my ear or accidentally went down my throat, it'll be overlooked. But if it's not ma'mur bihi, then it is manhiyan anhu. And so therefore, it's not an excuse, right? So this is one breakdown. We can make another breakdown Where is it? And say it's either ma'mur bihi, sorry, it's either sinful or ma'mur bihi, right? Okay? So doing the opposite of sin is obligatory. So in which case I'm going to break it like this. I'm going to say that everything, oops, basically everything that is not haram is basically jaiz, right? And the jaiz is ma'mur bihi min haythu kawnuhu ghayra haram, right? The jaiz is obligatory from the point of view of it that it's haram to do the haram. So basically it's wajib to do the mubah from the point of view that it is not haram. It's wajib to do the sunnah from the point of view that it's not haram. It's wajib to do the wajib from 2 points of view, and it's wajib to do the makruh, right? So in which case I'm going to put makruh under the wajib. I'm going to put makruh under here. So then I'm going to have 4 categories here. 1, right? 2, 3, 4. The ma'mur is going to include the wajib, the sunnah, the mubah, and the makruh, right? So Allahu A'lam, that's what a Maliki would say. He says, yeah, praying after Asr is makruh, but makruh is wajib from the point of, is ma'mur bihi, from the point of view that you're commanded not to do the haram. So therefore you're kind of indirectly being commanded to pray after Asr, if that makes sense. So it's going to be valid, right? So they say it's valid. Like for them to pray after Asr is makruh and valid. We say it's makruh and invalid, or haram and invalid, either or, because we look at it like this. Does that make sense? But in general, the Salafi mentality, Allah hasn't told you to do a mawlid, therefore it's a bid'ah, therefore it's haram. You can't worship Allah by doing a mawlid because He hasn't legislated it. Right? That mentality is correct. The idea is correct. The actual process is wrong. Right? But the concept is right. Like you cannot do an act of worship that is not mashru', that's not legislated. Right? It's got to be wajib or mandub. If it's not wajib or mandub, then it's not going to be an act of worship. Right? You can't do like in the Shafi school, for example, you can't just go and do sujood normally. Like I just want to do sujood. Like I just like doing sujood. I just want to worship Allah by doing sujood. You can't. You have to, it either has to be sujood shukr, sujood tilawa, or sujood salah. One of the 3, that's it. It doesn't exist outside. Right? You're not allowed to just improvise. Right? Those people, those scholars who say things like the hadra, right? That there's a bid'ah. What are they trying to say? Is it's a naw' khas min al-ibadah, ghayr mashru', not legislated, right? Those who would say it's an act of worship would say it's mashru' min haythu kawnuhu dhikran. It's a type of dhikr. What's wrong, right? So that's the way. So the concept is correct. The application of the kind of Salafis as well. Make sense, guys? So certainly as Shafi'is, we treat the makruh as non-legislated and wrong. Like it's not. So you were playing chess and you forgot the prayer. It's as if you forgot the prayer on purpose. It's not an excuse. You're considered athim bi tarki salah, even though you didn't intend, like you forgot, because the nisyan was natij an makruh, wal makruh ghayr mu'tad bihi, likawnihi manhiyan anhu, right? Because something that is prohibited. Is everyone following me? So it's important how we put these things together, right? How do we even organize these things? Right? Okay, okay. So then it goes on to sahih. So sahih is not a hukam shar'i taklifi. It is a hukam shar'i wad'i. Right? So I'm told to do X. I'm told to do X. Whether it's valid or not is something else. Right? Something. So was that valid or not? Right? Was that a valid prayer or not? Is not the same as the obligation to pray. But generally speaking, when you do what you were told to do, it's going to be valid in general. Right? So when you were told to pray and you prayed, it's going to be sahih generally. But they're not. But the two things. One is the label that says you don't need to repray. The label that says the contract went through. The label says the contract went through, and now you can do this and do that. But these are two different things. As-sihha wal fasad is these are labels. These are not actual moral things. If that makes sense. Khair, inshallah. Okay, inshallah, we'll stop there. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.